Now, the older people call that the Lark's March, and that isn't exactly the way they had it. There's a story about it. There was a lad one time in Ireland, West Coast I presume, Cullamore-Keon out in Glinskin, Connemara, told me the story. And his name was Henry Bohannon. And he was trying to play the pipes, trying to learn the pipes, and he was making a very bad fist of them altogether. And he used to go fishing off a rock in the deep water down below, fishing for rockfish or whatever he could catch. And one day a little fairy man appeared beside him, and he said, "Tell me, Henry, why is it that no matter whether you get a good catch of fish or you get no fish at all, you still have the gloomy look on your face of dissatisfaction?" "Well, I'll tell you the truth," Henry said. "I'm trying to play the pipes and 'tis beating me altogether. I can't make a fist of them. And it's not the fish I'm worried about, it's the pipes." "Well," said the little man, "I can soon cure that for you," he said. "I can give you the gift of piping." He said, "Tell me, Henry, which would you prefer, music to please yourself and nobody else, or music to please everybody and not please yourself?" "Oh," Henry said, "I think I prefer music to please myself and nobody else." "All right," said the little man, "you go home and at midnight tonight have the pipes yoked up, all ready, and when the clock strikes 12, on the last stroke of the clock, you blow up the pipes and you'll have fine music that'll please yourself. You'll be very pleased with yourself." And he disappeared, and Henry went home, and he was watching the clock, and at midnight he had the pipes yoked up, and on the last stroke of midnight he blew up the pipes, and he played away the sweetest music he ever thought he heard in his life. But nobody took any notice of him. Just thought, there's Henry still learning, still trying to play the pipes, and so on. After a while, Henry caught on to this, that he was pleasing himself but nobody else. And he'd be out fishing again, and he'd have the gloomy look on his face. No matter whether he caught a good haul of fish or not, he was still dissatisfied. And the little man appeared to him again. "Ah, so you're not satisfied, Henry?" he said. "No," said Henry, "I'm not. I'm sorry I didn't take the other choice." "Ah, well, I'll give it to you," said the little man. "Be ready at the last stroke of midnight tonight," he says, "and blow up your pipes, and you'll have music that'll please everybody, and you won't be making any value on it yourself at all." Henry was ready at the stroke of midnight. He blew up the pipes, and he played music. And shortly after that, people got to listen to Henry, and everybody came to hear Henry, and Henry became famous all around the place, so much so that even he was invited to the houses of the nobility to play at when they were having balls and parties and feasts and festivals and that. And one man there took such a fancy to Henry's piping that he took Henry in as the resident piper of his own castle or manor or whatever it was. And Henry was there to teach the girls, the young ladies, dance and decorum and deportment and so on. And of course dressed up in the black, the piper's black and white starched front and bow tie and hard hat. And piper, of course, was a nobleman that time when he was the nobleman's piper. Well, it happened anyway that his master was over in London on a visit. And he was at some kind of a ball or party, and the English nobleman had a piper. And he asked the Irishman, "What do you think of my piper?" "Not very much indeed," says the Irishman. "I have a piper at home that play rings round him," he said. "You have not," says the Englishman. "Well, indeed I have," says the Irishman. "How much will you bet?" And the bet was laid, the arrangement made, and they sent for Henry, and Henry came over. And the competition started. Now, in those days, to be a nobleman's resident piper, you had to be a very good piper. And it wasn't on your piping alone that the adjudication was decided. It was on the repertoire of the pipers as well. And these two pipers played tune for tune all night long, until in the finish neither of them had a tune left to play, and it looked like there was going to be neither the winner. The one would be as good as the other. And Henry was racking his brains for another tune, and he strolled out in the morning air and he lit his pipe, and didn't he hear the lark above him in the sky? And he listened to the lark a while, and he got the inspiration, and he went in and he buckled down the pipes and blew them up, and he played the tune which is called the Lark's March, and won the competition. Now this is the old version of Marshall na Fushoige, the Lark's March.